Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a gorgeous day. I don't know if you've had the chance to be outside, but it is like quintessential golf weather.
For those of us who get to play golf.
Those of us who managed to schedule an important business meeting around a golf game today, yes.
Awesome.
There are those of us who do that.
Yes, and those of us who still have to work on that. So it's all right.
I
It's
would
all
argue
good.
that it's working. This
You're
is
arguing.
a working meeting.
Okay, that's it. You don't have to justify it to me. I'm not your boss. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome
Stand in line.
What's that?
Stand in line to be my boss.
I am not your boss, and I'm not.
You are not, even though you're CEO of our fine enterprise, and I'm just the follower.
That's not true. I'm CEO of my business, and I'm a co-founder of the Renegade Success.
That is correct. I'm just messing with you. So, Tom, we are doing feedback. This
Yes.
is a great topic. We've been talking about this all week. It's really great. I love it. It has really sparked a lot in me. So I'm going to give you some really positive feedback right now. You do a great job at introducing the topic.
Okay.
And I would love for you to do that now.
Okay. I will do that. So all week we were talking about feedback. Thank you for that feedback. I didn't necessarily ask for it, and that's okay in this instance. So I appreciate it. So we've been talking about feedback. One of those things that I think is can be really helpful, and it can also create some challenges in where we're at. And so that's why we thought it was a really good thing to discuss as we continue to move forward towards the end of the year. And one of those times when people are really talking about end of year reviews and people just giving feedback as we go along. So we're going to talk today about giving it. And we talked a little bit about the beginning of it on Monday. We dove into the topic, kind of an overview. And then yesterday we talked about inviting feedback and the value of that. And so if you're not clear on what that might mean, yesterday's would be a great episode for you to go back and listen to, because I think it had some real insight into why there is value in inviting it, and why there's maybe, we'll talk more about giving it if you haven't been invited to give it, as Bob did this morning. And anyways, before we get to that though, we're going to do what we always do every morning. We start by celebrating. So Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I'm going to celebrate that I have people in my life who give me feedback in powerful ways that enables me to actually figure things out that I couldn't figure out on my own, including you.
Thank you. Awesome. That's great. I appreciate that.
How about you?
I am celebrating that today I get to do one of those things that I really love to do in my work, and that is presenting. I'm presenting to a group today at 1:00, and I'm excited about the opportunity to share a little bit of the value that I think I have to others.
Awesome.
Yes. So what are we celebrating?
How that goes.
I will be sure to let you know how it goes. What is the nation celebrating today, Bob?
It's a big one. I can't believe you don't know it, Tom. It's National Vanilla Cupcake Day. Let's face it, that's a pretty big day.
Okay. Is it vanilla? Is it the cake, or is it
Yes, it's
cake
the
and
cake.
icing?
The cake is vanilla. Yes.
So then you can do anything else you want with
Correct.
it.
You
You
can
can
put
add sparkles into it. You can put chocolate on
sparkles.
top, strawberry, whatever you want.
I like a good vanilla cupcake with chocolate chips put on it right as it's coming out of the oven, so they melt and make a nice little shield.
Okay.
That's a personal favorite.
I like that.
My birthday's coming up next month, so if anyone wants to send me cupcakes, that would be my request.
Way to slide that in. I like that. Do you think I would forget?
No, that wasn't it at all. It just seemed like it fit.
Do you remember your birthday last year?
I do remember. Yes, I'm not that old, Tom.
Well, do you remember what happened on your birthday last
Yeah,
year?
you had a really nice video. Are you going to cue that up now because you can?
No, because it's not your birthday. So,
Okay, fair enough.
all
Let's
right,
proceed, shall we?
we shall proceed. So, welcome everyone. Let's dive into our topic a little bit. And if you are listening on the podcast, please feel free to rate this or share this with a family or friend. If you are watching it on Facebook or on Twitter or YouTube, I forgot our other platform, please feel free to share a comment because the comments help and add value to what we are providing. And at the end of the show, Bob and I will provide our one thing that hopefully will help you move forward into your day, or you'll be able to use it somewhere down the line. So if you have one thing you would like to share around this topic about feedback and giving it, please feel free to do it as well. So with that, Bob, do you want to kick off the day by sharing your thoughts about giving feedback?
I would love to. When I was teaching college at Johns Hopkins University 4 or 5 years ago, I was teaching a presentation class, and I had students who were not very comfortable doing presentations, as you might imagine. And the part of the learning was not only did you give your presentation, but you gave feedback to other people about their presentation. And I believed in doing it in real time. As soon as it was finished, let's hear. And what I discovered with the help of one of my colleagues was that there's a really great way to provide feedback to anyone, which is the criticism sandwich. You ready for that? It should have its own national day. But you say something great that they did. And it doesn't have to be huge, but Tom, I really appreciate that you were on time today. That would be the start. So there's an acknowledgement of something good, and then a little bit of criticism in the middle. That's the meat. So Tom, I thought that you could have maybe done this a little better, and then back to something good at the end. And oh, Tom, before I forget, you were really great with that comment you made 3/4 of the way through. In this way, people hear it much better because they hear the good stuff. It bookends it, and in the middle, to use a mixed metaphor, it gives you that meat. And I've found this is really effective. The other thing I've found that's really effective in giving feedback is asking for permission. Do you mind if I give you some feedback? Do you mind if I share some thoughts I have about what you're doing? Do you mind if would you be open to some thoughts on what you might do to change what you're doing? Asking that question invites the person to open their mind to be like, and sometimes people say, I had someone the other day say to me, I'm just not in a place today to hear this. I was like, no harm, no foul. It does no good for us if we give feedback at the time the person can't hear it. That's not feedback. That's just annoying. Because often when they're not in a place to hear it, they take anything as a negative. And that's not the goal when we're giving feedback. The other thing I would tell you, Tom, just thinking about it at the moment is, if you're giving feedback to prove how smart you are or how much better you are than the other person, it's probably not going to land very well.
Sure. I would agree.
I think I gave my one thing 3 different things right there.
You might have. I wasn't counting, but I think there might be things in there. But there's a lot of good tips in there, and I would agree. I would agree with all of them. I think they all have value. One of the phrases I like to use is, "Can I share something with you?" Right. Because I think it's an opportunity, and I think one of the things that I've really tried to do recently, and honestly, I have to tell you that this I learned through the women's lacrosse officials community, is some great ways to give feedback. And it isn't always giving feedback. It's inquiring about what people saw or what was going through their head. What were they processing? So that it's not like me telling you, I think you could have done this differently, or maybe better, or, because those are words that like better, or, you could, or you could, I didn't like this, kind of to me are judgments. I'm not sure that it's helping someone figure out. And I think as we give feedback, if we can't give it, it's a little bit of what you were wrapping up with. If we can't give it from a space of trying to help them learn, we shouldn't give it. Because then it's just about us passing judgment on something that they did, which is just what's real for us, doesn't mean that it's real for them or for others. And so what I love in the officiating community is, like, if you're being evaluated, which happens regularly, you have someone who's observing and they watch, and typically they will ask you a question. So on this call, what did you see? What were you processing through your head? And I think it's the same in the workspace. If you go up to someone and you just say, "Hey, can I ask you a question? Can I share a thought with you?" Ask you a question, to be like, "All right, I saw the email that you sent. What was the message that you were trying to get across?" Because what could end up happening is we might not really understand, and it may not just land with us, and yet it could land well with someone else. And so us saying them, "Well, I didn't really think your message resonated." Maybe it just didn't resonate with me. Could have resonated with everyone else that received it. And so I think finding out what was the intent. So in your presentation, okay, when you made that comment, what was the intent of that? What were you trying to accomplish by walking them through this process? So now I can understand what they were trying to accomplish. And then I can say, wow, that was really effective. It affected me. And I would imagine, or I saw all these comments in the chat or people nodding their heads to be like, yeah, I guess that really resonated. That seemed to hit the mark. And I think so often that when we give feedback, we're judging. We're judging based on what we see or what we believe. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the world or the audience or whomever are receiving it the same way. And so that's why I think it's always a cautious thing in giving feedback, is being clear that this is just from my perspective. If you want to hear it, I'm happy to share. And I think sometimes people know what's coming. I had a situation the other day where someone did something, and it's something that I had talked with them about previously. We just had a conversation around something that I provided some feedback on. And so a similar situation arose, and the person reacted similar that they did the first time. And as soon as that happened, they kind of came over to me and was like, I know, I should have done this or that. And I'm like, I'm not saying that. I think the fact that that process went through your mind, the feedback that I had given previously was helpful. And so I think that's, to me, a big part of giving it is where are we coming from when we're trying to do it, and how are we helping people learn, do things maybe differently that might have a greater impact.
Or perhaps it's also helped them figure it out for themselves.
Yes.
I know you and I talked yesterday or the day before about a presentation you were going to do, the one I think you're doing today.
Yes.
And I kind of gave you some ideas, but I was really careful to try to get it so you owned the result. It wasn't about me. It was about, hey, here's some thoughts. And then there was a moment where you're like, hold on. And you were writing some notes. And I just let you write the notes, because that's when you were internalizing it and turning it into whatever it was going to be for you. I could have scripted it for you and said, Tom, do this, do this, do this, do this. But then you feel like, now it's Bob's presentation. I'm giving Bob's presentation. And that doesn't give you ownership. And I've seen it with employers a lot, where, I know of a situation where an employer was telling their employees to schedule a holiday party. And the employees figured out the holiday party, and they set up a theme, and they had a whole bunch of stuff going on. And then the person in charge came and said, no, that's not how we do it. We do it this way. And so one of the things I think about giving feedback is setting the parameters.
Sure.
And what's reasonable. Do you want to hear feedback about your whole presentation, Tom? Or would you like me to just help you talk through the introduction? Right? Sometimes we have to, because it's easy to give feedback. I'm someone who writes a lot, and I've learned that the best way to get someone to help you figure out what you need to write for them, if you're writing a press release or a statement or even a speech, give them a rough draft, and they will mark it up and change. And I don't like this phrase, and I thought you were going to talk about this. a blank paper scares people. They love to give feedback. When you give them 5 paragraphs to say, this is what I was going to send out. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not who we are. I'm like, we've talked about this for 3 weeks. But it's real when it's on paper. And I think that's one of the things about feedback is giving it to people when they're most receptive to it. And knowing if you're leading a team or with you and me, I think there are times where you could give me feedback and you know me well enough to know this is just not the day for Bob. He is not there right now. And that's part of being a really good leader. The feedback can wait. I would rather give you one thing to think about if that's going to change how you move forward and profoundly affect what you do, than give you a barrage of 100 things.
Yeah, that's not
and
helpful.
You go, now I got the fire hose.
Correct. I think that's one of the
paralyzed. Oh, I'm horrible. I'm a horrible presenter. I can't believe this. Why would I even think I could do this? And we've all done that to people.
Oh, no doubt. And the challenge with that is they don't know where to start. And now they're even a worse spot.
And they fixate on the negative too, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, and I have found that typically when I have received feedback like that, there's very little helpful. It's just, let me tell you all the things you did wrong.
Yeah.
or you should have done differently. It's not it's not a litany of, oh, this was all, I like this was good, this impacted me well, this was, seemed to make sense. It's like, you didn't do this, you forgot to do this.
What were you thinking? That's always a good one.
Well, and what were you thinking can be, what were you thinking in the right context?
And the right tone.
Can be helpful.
What were you thinking versus,
Correct.
Hey, I'm curious. As you put this together, what were your thoughts about who you were trying to deal with? That tone makes all the difference in the world.
No doubt. And I clearly remember a time when one of the people who was on my team was doing an event and they were setting up for it. And I came in, and I had tried to say to them, look, this is your event. Set it up, run it, do it the way you want to do it. And so when the event came and they were doing some prep, I was like, can I just ask a question? And I said, do you think you have enough space to do what you want to do here? And unfortunately, the person wasn't ready to hear it and got really frustrated and felt like I was just taking over. And I was trying at the time to be helpful. What I realized is that was not the time to ask that question. It would have been probably more effective to allow them to do it the way they wanted to do it and learn from whatever it was. I knew that they had a lot of people they were trying to put in a small space and I had thoughts about what might happen. That's why I asked the question. Didn't tell them they had to do it. And at the same time, I think they were so fixated on preparing that they weren't in a space where they really were prepared to hear it, or that it landed in a way that was at all helpful. It was more of me telling them what to do. When in reality, I was just trying to inquire if they felt like this was enough. And it's one of those things where you can't know it until you see it. So you walk in there and you're like, and that's what I try to say. It's like, look, part of my job is to help make sure these things go as smoothly as they can and to help you figure out, how things are going to be run so that you can learn from them. And I should have probably waited until after the event because it wasn't that close, but for that, I didn't feel like it was that close to the start of the event. Clearly for that person, it was too close to the start of the event and it was going to cause too much chaos. Lesson learned.
Yeah. So my one thing, Tom, there were a lot of things I think earlier, but my one thing would be in giving feedback. Well, two things really. Check with yourself, like you were just saying. Is it the time when the person's most likely to be able to hear it? And then the second thing is, are you doing it with their interest in mind? Not self-serving, I'm proving that I'm a better party planner than you are by proving to you that you put the cups on the left side, not the right side. And those two hints, I think, really will change how you give feedback. You or anyone, not you, you are a listener and viewer. Yes.
Fair enough.
How about you?
Like a lot of what you said are things that I think would be, would be my one thing. And I guess I would go to the collective. One of the things I love about what we started with this show is exactly the same thing. We wanted to share one thing with people each day. Not here, we would have conversations around a wide array of topics throughout our shows. And yet at the end, we try to settle on that one thing. So when people walked away, we were offering that this might be the one thing you walk away with this in regards to this topic. That may or may not have value for them. There might have been some part of the conversation earlier that hit them more impactfully, and that's okay. And I think that we could sit down here and say, okay, when you're giving feedback, these are the things this. We could have given a litany of, here's your top 10 things on giving feedback, and people would walk away and be like, okay, I'm never going to remember that. Where do I start? Wow, that seems overwhelming. And so I think I would just encourage people to do the same thing as you're looking at it. Think about the one thing and know that feedback is an ongoing conversation so that you can share other things at other times. One of the biggest gripes I have with annual reviews is that they're annual. And so it becomes a fire hose of here. Let's take everything you did over a year and try to have a conversation around it in 45 minutes or an hour. Why aren't we doing that throughout the year? So that the feedback becomes a conversation. It's not a judgment on everything that you've tried to accomplish over one space. So I think that's probably two things. So I apologize, but
no, I don't think there's a need to apologize. It's a great topic, and I think I would encourage people, if you went through this and you're still a little confused, you can hit that rewind button and listen to it again. There were a lot of nuggets here. And I do that with a lot of podcasts and a lot of broadcasts. I'm like, oh, wait, that's real. I need to hear that again. So don't be afraid to go back to it. We won't tell anyone. That's between you and your video or audio player. So Tom, you ready to wrap this puppy up?
And probably your internet provider, right? That's tracking everything that you do.
Yes, your internet provider must be involved in some capacity.
Correct. Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much for being with us today. We hope that you found one thing to help you move forward. If you did, we'd love for you to share this with other people, whether you share the podcast or you invite them to join our Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where these are broadcast live daily. It's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and then ask to join. And tell us why you're a renegade. It is a private group. That's why we ask you to ask to join, so that we can go in and have conversations like this where people can share. Here are some of the challenges they've had in either giving or receiving feedback, which we'll talk about tomorrow. And it's a great space with a community of people who are looking to help you take your next step, not judge you on the steps that you have taken. So we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we will see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you and go have a vanilla cupcake. Yum.
Yum. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.